eLTER, Integrated European Long-Term Ecosystem, Critical Zone, and Socio-Ecological Research.
This is the second in the series of videos on the ReLTER package to interface between our software and the Danes.org website. It's being developed in the context of the eLTER research infrastructure. First, a reminder, from this GitHub repository, you can download the scripts and the slides that we'll be showing in this video. This is the previous video with a brief introduction to our software. And this is the code that you need to run to load the few packages that we'll need for this demo. These you should have installed already in your computer, and how to install the ReLTER package itself. Once the package is installed, you load it with the library function. Then, for example, you can display the maintainer's name. And also, if you use this package in a publication, then this is the way to cite the package. This is a partial list of the functions available. We get this list from the ls function in R. Now, these functions can be broken up into several categories. Some of the functions retrieve site-specific information, metadata. Some of them retrieve metadata for a network of sites. And some allow access to third-party spatial data, such as species occurrence, taxonomy, some European spatial data, and also some products from the MODIS satellites. These are the functions that we'll be covering in this video. Like always in R, if you put the mouse cursor over the function name and press F1, you will get the help file, or type a question mark ahead of the function name and press enter to get to the help. We'll begin with an example from the Doñana LTSCR platform in Spain. First, we use the function get eLTER general info. This function retrieves certain key metadata, and to run the function we pass two parameters, a country name and a site name. The parameters that come back include the full DIMES URL for that particular site. So once we have the URL, then we can query that particular site with the next function, get site info. So here we query using the country name Spain, the site name Doñana, to get general metadata. Among the metadata, one of the items is called URI. We access that item, like in many examples in R, with the dollar operator. And we store the item that it retrieves in the Doñana ID variable. And this is what we get back, the full DIMES URL for that particular site. Now, once we have the DIMES URL, then we can use that in the get site info function to query other information about that particular site. Here, for example, we can use get site info with the category boundaries to download the shapefile boundary of the site. And in this example, we use the R package tmap to make a quick map. We plot the shapefile on an OpenStreetMap background, and we use a blue fill coloring. These maps are interactive. You can zoom around, display or not display different layers. Next, we use the get site species occurrences function to download data from the GBIF website. This will give us a list of different species that are found in that particular location. So we call the function get site species occurrence with the Doñana ID that we retrieved previously, and we pass which data store you want to use, in this case GBIF. We'll limit ourselves to only 12 examples, otherwise the list will be too long. Now, once this runs, we can display the column names of the data that we've retrieved with the call names function in R. This is some of the columns that are available, not all of them. Once we have that set of species occurrence data, then we can display some of the columns. To display specific columns from the GBIF data table that we just downloaded, we can use the dplyr select function. We pass this function first the data table, species occurrence $GBIF, and then which specific columns we want to show. In this case, only two, the species name and the event date. And these are the results that we get. Only 12 because we query for only 12. For the second example, we'll move to the Loch Kinnaird site in Scotland. Like before, we use the getELTER general info function. We pass it the country name, United Kingdom, and the site name. Partial matching works here. And we get the URI by querying with the $ operator. We get the full DIMES URL for this particular site, as shown here. Once we have that DIMES ID, then we can query using getSiteInfo some of the metadata from the site. In this case, we ask for contacts, environmental characteristics, and other parameters. And here, for example, once it runs, we can show the site manager's name from general info and his email. In addition, among the environmental characteristics at this particular site, we have yearly average air temperature and yearly average precipitation. Furthermore, at that site, environmental characteristics includes the biome of that particular site, and also a text explanation of the vegetation that's found there. Now we go on to query a full eLTER network. In this case, the network in Slovakia. From the danes.org website, we found the full URL of this particular network. And in this case, we call the function getNetworkSites with that DIMES URL. By printing out the title item in the return value, we get the list of 9 sites in the Slovakia network. Now we can use that to produce a map of the network of sites in Slovakia. We call the function produceNetworkPointsMap with the DIMES ID that we retrieved previously and the 3-letter ISO code for the country. In this way, we get the boundary of the country and also the location of the sites. So we can use the tmap package in R again to produce a map, again using the OpenStreetMap background. We add on the eLTER Slovakia network and the border, giving it a blue color. And this is the map that we get back. Now we can switch over to our studio. Here we are in our studio. If you'll notice in the lower right-hand pane, on the Files tab, you can see all the files that are associated with each of the demos. Each demo has an HTML file, which contains the slides, and an R script that contains the code that we're going to show. And as you see, there are several different demos. In the upper left-hand code pane, I've already loaded the R script for demo 2. You probably know that when you mark a few lines, select a few lines, and press Control-Enter, and those lines are executed. This is the code to load the few packages that we need for this demo. And this is the code to install and load ReLTER. And as we showed in the slides, you can display the maintainer's name and the citation text if you want to cite the package in your publication. The ls function in R allows us to show all the functions available in a package. As you can see, there are so far 44. Now, putting a question mark ahead of a function name or pressing F1 when the mouse cursor is over that name displays in the right-hand Help tab the help file for that particular function. You get a description of the function itself, the syntax for calling the function, a detailed explanation of each of the parameters, each of the arguments, the return value, the return from the function, and in addition, you'll also see that there are a couple of examples for each function. Now you can copy-paste from the help file directly into the code console. Copy-paste. And let's try this example. That's the metadata we got back from Eisenwürzen in Austria. Okay, let's go on with the example from Doñana. Again, we call get eLTER general info. We pass this function the country name, Spain, and the site name, Doñana. And then we'll show the Doñana URL, the DIMES URL for Doñana, that's stored in the URI item in the result. Now in the Doñana ID that we've just retrieved, we have the full DIMES URL for this particular site. So we can go on and use that Doñana ID in additional functions. For example, here we call getSiteInfo, and we ask for the boundaries. This will download a shapefile of the boundaries of Doñana. Then we use the R tmap package to make a quick map for visualization. Over here on the right-hand pane, in the viewer, you can see that we get the Doñana polygon on top of an OpenStreetMaps background. Next, we use the same Doñana ID in the getSiteSpeciesOccurrences function. This function allows us to download from GBIF and other web sources of species occurrence a list of all the species at this particular location. How can we check what other data stores are available for downloading species occurrence data? Well, we put the cursor in the middle of the function, press F1, and in the Help tab, we get the help file for this specific function. And here we can see that the data stores that are available are GBIF, iNaturalist, and OBIS. We choose whichever we want with the list ds parameter, and we can set it to either GBIF, iNat, or OBIS, or a combination of them. So we run this function. Now let's have a look at all of the columns in the table that we've just retrieved. As you see, there are 85 columns of data in this table. That, of course, includes kingdom and phylum and order and family and genus and so on and so on. Also the dates that the data was retrieved and everything else in that data table. Here's a quick way to show just a few chosen columns from this data table. We use the dplyr select function. We pass select the data table itself and the name of two columns that we want to show. In this case, the name and the event date. Here they are. Notice that there are 500 rows here because that's how many species we got back from GBIF. Next example, we'll go to the Loch Kinnaird site in the United Kingdom. We'll use the same get eLTER general info and then retrieve its DAME's URL in the $URI item. Then we'll ask to pull down with get site info, contacts, environmental characteristics, and parameters. Now, the Loch Kinnaird details variable contains some information about the site. For example, let's have a look at the manager's name, site manager name, and his email. Among the environmental characteristics, we can show yearly average air temperature and yearly average precipitation, like so. Here is the biome of that particular site. And Loch Kinnaird also has a string representation description of the vegetation at the site. For the final example, we're going to retrieve information about a full eLTER network, in this case the network in Slovakia. This is the DAME's ID, the DAME's URL of the Slovakia eLTER network. We saved that into a variable called eLTER Slovakia ID, and now we use the function get network sites with that URL as the parameter. Now, printing out the title item, the dollar title item, we get a list of the 9 sites. Notice also in the right-hand viewer pane, we get a quick map similar to the ones we showed before. However, as you see, there are green circles with numbers inside with the location of the sites. This is a simple way to represent point locations when they're very close by. If I zoom in, you can see that they begin to split up. Now let's make our own map from the same data. In addition, we can call the produce network points map using the same DAME's URL that we've stored in eLTER Slovakia ID, and we also pass it the 3-letter ISO code for the country that we're investigating. So in this case, the eLTER Slovakia return value will contain the site locations. And in the SVK variable, we store the boundary of the site that was acquired using produce network points map. Now again, we can call this string of commands from the tmap package. And we get a map like so, with all the different sites represented. We've given the border a blue color, so it will stand out a little better. That completes this session. Please stay tuned for the next video where we'll go into additional ReLTER functions.